Hey my heroes, it's me again. So, this is my theory and discussion video on Deku, One For All, and all the various quirks that he's going to have. Now, listen, I already know that the community is a bit of a divided thing on this topic, and I get it. You don't want Deku to be overpowered, but to those people who say that he's overpowered and that it ruins the story and all that kind of stuff, to those people I say this, he's not going to be overpowered until, like, the end of this series, number one, and number two, considering the fact that who his final boss is gonna be, he's gonna need the power because when you think about it, right? One For All is technically a derivative quirk of the quirk All For One, and the only reason why it became what it is was because All For One, the person, we don't know his actual name yet, gave his little brother the stockpiling quirk. And then that quirk fused with the little brother's quirk that he didn't even know that he had, and those two fused together, and that became One For All. Now, when All For One passed on the original stockpiling quirk to his brother, we don't know exactly how much power was stockpiled in the quirk before he gave it to his brother. We don't know if there was like a certain amount already put there, or if it was just set at 0, and his brother just had to, like, you know, learn how to use it somehow, some way. And, you know, that's how it happened. And then he found someone else who possibly had a quirk who might be able to use One For All better than him. And he's like, okay, well, I can't stop my brother. I can't stop All For One. So I'm going to pass on One For All to someone else and then see if they can stop him. And then if they can't stop him, they'll pass it on to someone else. And then they can stop. And then they might be able to stop him. And then so forth and so on. And then eventually, you know, this quirk is going to have enough power in it to where it's going to be able to stop All For One. And it's gotten to that point now. You would think that Deku would need more than just 6 powers to defeat All For One, considering the fact that All For One has way more than 6 powers that he can use at one time. All For One has been shown to be able to use more than like 10 or 15 powers at once. So it's like, the fact that Deku is going to get only 6 means, yeah, he's going to be incredibly powerful, but, you know, these powers are going to be augmented by the strength and stockpile of power that has been built up in One For All for God knows how many years. Probably, like, about, let's say, like 100, maybe 150 years, because the quirk phenomenon apparently started around that time. We don't really have an exact timeline for when this entire thing started in that universe. So, the thing about Deku is that he's just unlocking all this power now. And there's still a lot of debate on to whether or not he's going to unlock a new power-up every arc. I don't personally think so, but if they do that, then it's like, alright, you know, he'll learn that he has it, and then, you know, he'll use it, you know, really quick to learn what it is, you know, learn to, you know, whether he's got to use it or not. And then, you know, he'll keep the power stashed away until he unlocks all of them, and then he can just train with all of them, and that way, you know, he has all of the power, you know, that he needs. Now, right now, Deku's limit for using One For All is about at 20%. So I think that the way that it works is that he can use Black Whip, but he doesn't have to reach 20% to do it. It seems like the quirk is independent of his emotions. So it's not like Deku can have the mentality that, oh, you know, I'll have to power myself down now and not use as much of my power in full cowl now. Because in the fight with Shinso, he was going 20% most of the time, but then when he started using Black Whip, he downgraded himself to 8%. So it's like he could have mopped the floor with everyone, really, if he had just continued at 20%. So that also begs into question, has he been training constantly in 20%, you know, to be able to constantly keep himself at 20? Because 20% seems like it's pretty strong so far. And that would be a pretty, like, 20-25% would be a pretty good, like, gap, like, limiter for Izuku to have at this moment in time, because he's about, what, I think, like, 15, 16 years old. So, I imagine in some months' time, because I don't think that we're going to necessarily get a Naruto-style time skip. Like, we're going to go through Boku no Hero up until the point where Izuku graduates from UA, and then that'll be the point where, let's say, for example, we'll get a 2-year, maybe like a 2-year time skip or something like that, to where Izuku graduates UA when he's 18 years old, and then 2 years go by, and then he's 20 years old, maybe 3 years go by and he's 21, and then by that time he's at 3 years to train with all of the quirks that he's possibly unlocked by this time in high school, and then he can train up to be the number one hero, and he could be training to try and stop Shigaraki in the League of Villains. So that's something, but that's not what this video is about. This video is mainly about Deku and the quirks that he's going to acquire, and the quirk that he's acquired already, Black Whip. Now, that quirk mainly seems like it's a excuse me, seems like it's a long range, but also a long and mid range style quirk that allows Deku to, from the way that he's used it so far, he flicks his finger, or he positions his hand like this or like this whenever he's trying to grab something from the sides, or if he's flicking the black mass from his fingers or from his wrists, from this area here. So what I'm thinking is that in the future, when he starts to master the quirk a little bit more, he's going to mainly use that in conjunction with his Delaware Smash, both with the gloves and without the gloves. Because remember, the gloves were primarily designed to focus the air pressure that Deku can shoot from his fingers whenever he flicks his finger. So if he uses that in conjunction with Black Whip, it would make really good for combo moves, because he could go into full cowl, right, and then activate Black Whip, flick Black Whip, the whip shoots out, grabs an opponent, he brings them back, and then he could do the Black Whip with one finger, and then immediately switch to another finger, and then do air cannon smash with the other finger, and then send them flying, or something like that. Or he can do the scorpion thing, and he could be like, get over here, and he could do Black Whip, grab someone, bring him to him, and then hit him with a Delaware or whatever smash he's using at the time. He brings them in, hits them, floors them. So that's one thing that he could use Black Whip for. Now, one theory of mine is that, well, not really a theory of mine, this is a all-around going theory, that one of the things that Deku's going to be able to do is do the thing that All Might does and go into muscle mode. Now, All Might's been stated that he didn't have a quirk, that One For All was his quirk, technically. So it's like, how did he get the ability to be able to beef himself up? And he clearly states, and it's been shown throughout the show and the manga, that One For All is what allows All Might to beef himself up like that and be the All Might that we usually always see. The big symbol of peace that's always flexing and throwing punches that could whip up tornadoes and shit. So it would stand to reason that Deku would be able to do something similar, right? But the reason why I think he can't do it right now is because All Might is still alive. Therefore, that ability is still, not unlocked for Deku. And I can't remember if he said he was the second predecessor or what, but one of the predecessor of One For All that had Black Whip told Deku that he was going to unlock 6 other quirks. But I don't think he took into account of the fact that All Might likely is going to die soon, and if that ends up happening, what might end up happening is that when that happens, Deku's going to be able to, muscleify himself, so that way he'll be able to handle One For All in its base form at 100%, and then that way he could start training with all the other quirks and using them and getting used to them in a more supplementary way. That way he could start going into 100% and basically just acclimating himself to using it as much as All Might did, if not more. So that way he could, stockpile more power for himself. Because that's how All Might made it as strong as he did. All Might just trained and trained and trained and kept on, building up power until he was as strong as he was. So it just stands to reason that Deku is going to be that much more powerful, especially since he seems like he wants to push himself harder than All Might, but he doesn't want to do it to the extent that he breaks himself. So that's good. Now, as to what other quirks Deku might end up unlocking, that's still a bit of a foregone conclusion. That's still a thing that's thrown up in the air, because it's like we don't exactly know what quirks the other users of One For All had. Like Nana Shimura, I think it was confirmed somewhere, I think in an interview or something like that, or in a data book, that she had a quirk. It's just not confirmed what kind of quirk she had. And if the guy who had Black Whip had a quirk, Black Whip, then it stands to reason that, the guy said that Deku's gonna unlock other quirks, so obviously all the other people had quirks, so it stands to so it's, brings into question, what are they gonna be and how will they benefit Deku? And so it's really hard to really think about what his extra powers could be, because now we're kind of getting, because one complaint that I can understand is that we're getting a little bit into the realm of Superman territory, where he has powers that can basically be fit for every situation, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it fits the naming scheme of the Quirk, one for all. He's a hero that's, you know, fit for every situation, that can do anything, or, you know, can beat any villain essentially. But I don't think that Horikoshi's going to go down the route that Deku's going to be like a god level, like planet busting character or something like that. Potentially he could be, really, with the amount of strength that All Might's been shown to have, and he's been stated that like a lot of the time he holds back. It's like if Deku really like keeps on training and these powers turn out to be like massively destructive if he's not careful, then yeah, Deku might have the potential to destroy the world, possibly, if he's not careful. But Deku's not the type who wants to destroy the world. Like, say for example, like Bakugo. If Bakugo, say for example, trains himself enough, if Bakugo had One for All, for example, he would most definitely be able to destroy the world, because his quirk is literally the ability to blow shit up. So that's literally a world-ending scenario right there. So there are many different ways that could go, but that's not the kind of story we're dealing with here. So it's hard to say indefinitely which kind of quirk Deku will or will not get, but I'm really betting on he's going to get a quirk that allows him to beef up his muscles, not his actual like power with One for All in of itself, but, you know, increase his muscle mass so he can handle more of the power at higher percentages. He's already got Black Whip. I predict that he'll maybe get an ability that will give him some kind of precognition, an ability that'll give him the ability to negate hypnosis and stuff like that. Let me see. And the ability to perhaps just like similar, I guess, an ability like similar to perception hockey from One Piece. You know, an ability that allows him to differentiate one thing from the next. Like, you know, like a precognitive ability that'll give him enhanced senses. You know, something like that. I don't think he's going to get any form of regeneration or accelerated healing. That would just diminish a lot of the danger that it has to Deku's arms and stuff. But what I do think that he's also going to get is that later in the series, I think that Melissa Shields from the Two Heroes movie is going to get made canon, and she along with Hatsume is going to be Deku's costume maker. Well, no, as a matter of fact, I think all throughout high school, Hatsume is going to be the one to help upgrade Deku's costume, and then when Deku graduates from UA and becomes an official professional hero from that point on, if they decide to do the whole time skip route, then Melissa will come back and she will give Deku his final hero costume, or the truly upgraded version of it that will acclimate all of the quirks that Deku will have. Because if there's anyone that Deku's gonna trust with that secret, it would be Melissa, considering the fact that, you know, her dad and All Might had been through so much. So it would make sense that her dad passes on the torch to her being the costume designer for the next bearer of One for All. So that makes a lot of sense. Let me see, what else? That's really about it. I can't really think of anything else to mention at this point. I mentioned, you know, why it's alright that Deku's getting all this power, why, you know, what kind of other powers he might possibly get, you know, possibilities for his final suit and stuff like that. If there's anything else that I missed or that you guys would feel like you would want to talk about and have a discussion about, just let me know in the comments, and we can make a video about it. You know, I'm going to try to put out more videos like this. This is really just like a test run to see how you guys, you know, want to talk about things you guys want to discuss, theories, stuff like that. And, you know, I'm just trying to build a bigger audience and things like that. So, you know, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you heroes in the next video. Goodbye.